The United States has many native art forms. The Negro spiritual is one. It is this type of song that is one of the few Christmas carols written in South Carolina. Mary Had a Baby is next, under the kudzu. Born out of a life of bondage and servitude, the Negro spiritual was the slave's vocal expression of spirituality. At plantations across South Carolina, singing songs was a means for slaves to communicate with each other and about their circumstance. Many owners allowed work songs to be sung during working hours. Such a practice was useful when workers needed to labor in unison. But not all songs were for groups. Quiet songs were sung solo, and they were used to cheer each other in hard times. But the spiritual was different. Rather than focus on the rigors and horrors of slave life, the spiritual focused on salvation and freedom. Some spirituals even contain hidden meaning. Wade into the Water, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, and the Gospel Train, for example, all contain references to the Underground Railroad. It was into this culture that an unknown slave living on St. Helena Island off the coast of Beaufort, South Carolina, began singing a spiritual that became Mary Had a Baby. St. Helena Island is part of a group of islands that had a similar climate to the rice-growing region of West Africa. Rice, indigo, cotton, and spices were all grown on plantations on the islands. And some believe that it was on this island in 1526 that slavery was introduced to North America. St. Helena is also considered one of the locations where the Gullah language and culture developed. Mary Had a Baby is a 20-verse call and response song, a common lyric technique from sub-Saharan Africa, and a style still used in many African American churches in the South. The singer sings a statement, and the congregation responds. The story tells the story of Jesus, from the moment of his birth to the family's flight into Egypt. It would be inaccurate to say that a slave wrote Mary Had a Baby. Slaves were kept illiterate by their owners, so songs had to be learned orally. Slaves were not allowed to worship in most churches, but they used some of the same materials, particularly the hymn work of Isaac Watts, whose hymns were sung in most white churches in the South. While slaves could not read the hymns, they heard them sung each week. The slaves took Watts' original lyrics and reinterpreted them. In effect, many Negro spirituals started out as songs sung by white congregations. But we owe the survival of Mary Had a Baby to African-American composer William L. Dawson, who put the spiritual to music in his Negro Folk Symphony, which was premiered in 1934 by the Philadelphia Orchestra under the direction of Leopold Stokowski. From its roots in the horrors of slavery and its birth on a South Carolina island, Mary Had a Little Baby now brings joy to all that hear it during the holiday season. I'm Brian Scott with more Christmas coming up next week right here under the kudzu.